Good morning, everyone. My name is Dani Kimlinger, and I'm with Minds & Associates. We are going to talk about proactive stress management today. But before we get to that, I just want to go ahead and go over your benefit quickly. Minds & Associates is your employee assistance program. And with that benefit, you have 5 sessions per year per household member. Now, this is used pretty loosely, so it doesn't have to necessarily be a spouse or a child. It can be someone that's staying with you, a roommate, any of those. So your benefit starts on October 1st of every year and ends September 30th. You also have online services and legal financial services with your benefit. If you'd like to access your EAP, the number that you can call is 1-800-873-7138. So why are we going to talk about stress management today? Stress management is a really important part of our everyday lives. So first and foremost, why don't we go ahead and just talk about what we're going to talk about today. And I also just want to let you know that you can ask questions at any time, and I can see them on the right-hand side of the screen, so we can go ahead and address those as well. All right, so why focus on reducing stress? We have, so 43% of all adults suffer from adverse health effects due to stress. Stress is a factor in more than 75% of sicknesses today. This is according to the World Health Organization. What's really true about this statistic is that it varies quite a bit. So you might see some that are lower and certainly some that are higher. But what we do know is that stress is America's #1 health problem. Additionally, stress is linked to all of the leading causes of death, including cancer, heart disease, lung ailments, accidents, and suicide. So let me just kind of give you a working definition of stress. So stress is really a normal physiological reaction to a perceived threat. That's right, stress is normal. There are 2 different types of stress that we're going to just address quickly. So because it's a normal physiological reaction, stress can be both positive and negative. So I'm not sure if any of you have heard of eustress before, because actually recently that was probably the first time that I had. Eustress is a positive response to a stressor. This allows feelings of control and well-being. Now let's contrast that with distress. Distress is a negative implication. This can cause adverse reactions and can show up in ways such as perhaps aggressive behavior, withdrawal, so on and so forth. Now I'd like to talk about some examples of distress. So if you look at page 2, there's an indicator of stress kind of diagram here that's really nicely laid out. The 4 different categories that these fall into are physical, emotional, cognitive, and behavioral. So just to highlight a few that are pretty common in each category, under physical stressors, you might experience muscle tremors, headaches, teeth grinding, frequent urination, or those sweaty, cold hands that you might have. Under emotional, anxiety is pretty common, denial, depression, or irritability. Under the cognitive category, blaming others might be an indicator. You're easily distracted, you're struggling to solve your problem, or you're really having a hard time making a decision. And finally, under the behavioral category, withdrawal, perhaps increased drinking or drug use, an inability to rest, and perhaps insomnia and nightmares might fall in there too. So it's good to kind of be aware of those indicators of stress so that you know when you need to use some of the coping mechanisms that we're going to talk about today. What I'd like to do now is talk about what your stressors are. Now, unfortunately, we're not in a big room where we can kind of dialogue about this, but I'm hoping that this tool that I'm about to use with you will be helpful. If you look at page 4, there's a stress detector quiz. I'd like to take about 5 minutes to have you go ahead and fill out this quiz. Now there are approximately 6 categories. And I don't want you to think too much into these. Just go ahead, read the statement, and select a number that, that identifies kind of where you feel that you fall. So 1 being almost never. So I'm afraid I won't have enough money. So just quickly, do you think that this is almost never true, never something you stress about, or is this almost always something you stress about, or perhaps something in between? So just take about 5 minutes and do that. All right, I do show on my side that we have someone that has a hand raised. So if you have a question, unfortunately I can't hear the questions, but you can go ahead and type it, and I can go ahead and address that question. Thank you. We'll be back in just a few minutes, about 2 more minutes to finish up. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for taking the quiz. Now just going to talk a little bit about what this means. On the very bottom of page 5, you'll see a scoring guide here. And this certainly isn't absolute by any means, but it kind of gives you sort of a flavor of where you are in your stress level. So if you're right around the 36 range, 36 and below, good for you, because that means that you're experiencing low stress. If you're around 72, between 36 and 72, you might have a moderate problem with stress. And finally, if you're up to 144, you probably need to look at that stress that you have. So it's just sort of a kind of a general guide. So let's talk just a minute about basic sources of stress. So stress kind of falls into a couple different categories. First of all, your environment. Now, I'm sure all of you can think of every instance of your life where your environment is constantly bombarding you with stress. You have to adjust. You need to meet demands. This can be a noise. This can even be body stressors like pollution. And then there's social stressors as well. So deadlines, could be a loss of a job, financial problems, a presentation, physiological stress as well. So this can show up in hormones, so menopause or just aging. This can be a car accident perhaps, and the stress that it causes on your body, poor nutrition and lack of sleep. And the fourth stress that we are going to talk about is your thoughts. So your brain is constantly interpreting all these stressors that are coming into your body, into your brain, and it's translating them accordingly. So let's talk about just a few quick misconceptions about stress. So I'm sure we've always heard, we always know when we're under stress. This isn't necessarily true. Let me give you an example. I think the pollution one is one to speak to. You may not always that your body is breathing in this pollution causing your body stress. There's an example. Stress only affects those with high pressure lives. Once again, a misconception. Stress can affect everybody. Change your surroundings or take medication is the answer to dealing with stress. Well, I mean, that's certainly an option, but there are other ways that you can manage or deal with your stress. Stress is caused by events that happen to us. Not always. You might be stressed by something that's happening to a family member or a friend. And finally, emotions cannot be controlled. Once again, that's a misconception about stress. So we're going to go ahead and hopefully give you some tools to help you deal with that better. How do you know when you are stressed? And we just talked about these. I apologize. All right. So these are the four categories that we revisited when we talked about distress. So just as kind of a quick overview, we talked about physical, emotional, behavioral, and cognitive stressors. All right. Well, I hope you didn't think that you were just going to kind of listen into our webinar today, because I have a little bit of homework for you. We have a quiz on page 6. It's a questionnaire, rather. I wouldn't say it's a quiz. And this is going to let you look at your peak stress experience. So what you're going to do is go ahead and just read over the questions and answer them accordingly. We'll take about 3 minutes. I think 5 might be too long. About 3 minutes to just go ahead and quickly answer the questionnaire on page 6. All right. Well, I hope you found that to be helpful. And the good news about having this handout with you is that you can use this with other people as well. Any of these exercises, you might bump into a colleague or a friend that's experiencing some of these stress levels, and feel free to use any of these exercises however you find them to be helpful. All right, and this is in your handout as well, this slide that I'm showing you right now. And this is just a really, I think, a kind of a basic but helpful diagram of how well you're managing your life. So there are 8 categories here, and we're just going to quickly kind of go around the circle and just talk about those. And once again, if you have any questions or anything that you'd like a little bit more information on, please feel free to type in the question. I'd be happy to answer it. So the first is acceptance. Now, this is a really interesting one because you're constantly bombarded, as we said, with your environment, so on and so forth, with stressful situations. And you just sometimes need to accept those situations as they are. Now, this doesn't mean that you necessarily need to accept them as the way it should be, but you have to accept that they're just the way they are. So let's take an example to paint this a little bit. Let's say that you're in a car accident as an example. It's a stressful situation. You're going to have to probably accept that the car accident happened and move forward to work on how you might be able to address that. Social support being the next category. Human beings are social critters. We need family and friends to be able to support us through stressful situations. Let's go back to that car accident example. Certainly it's going to be much better to be able to kind of bounce off the situation, debrief with friends and family. Perhaps they have ideas about how you might be able to address situations. Assertiveness. This is easier said than done, I think. But it's really an important skill to have. You should be able to assert yourself in a situation where perhaps you feel like you're being spread too thin or that your own needs are not being met or respected. Time management. Once again, I think another one that's easier said than done. So with time management, what I recommend doing is looking at your day at the end of the day and how did you spend your time? Are there ways that you could have maybe spent it better? Did you optimally spend your time? Some of those questions become really important. Self-talk. This is a really important one as well. So I'm sure you know people in your life who kind of, when you're around them, you feel like you're drained because they have negative self-talk about themselves, about others, and it's certainly not energizing. So you can use your self-talk to think of positive and constructive thoughts about not only yourself, but others, as well as situations. Relaxation. I'm sure all of you get 8 hours of sleep a night, and that's great. However, if you're not, look at getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep. In addition to sleep, relaxation also leads into areas such as maybe relaxing on the couch, reading a book, taking a bubble bath, any of those ways that you use to kind of decompress. Nutrition, so important, and I'm sure in every magazine, literature, anything that you read. It's important, and it's something that we don't always do. Look at the chemicals and additives that you're putting into your diet. I'll give you a personal example. Typically, when I have a stressful event going on, caffeine is not my best friend. It hypes me up. I tend to get nervous, and that's just something that I should avoid. Exercise. So it's recommended that you're aerobically exercising at least 3 times per week for 20 minutes. In addition to that, perhaps weight-bearing exercise 1 to 2 times a week is also recommended. So looking at your exercise regimen is really important when learning how to kind of work with stressful situations. So next I'm going to look at a really interesting model that was introduced by Albert Ellis, and it's called rational problem solving. So this is literally going to help you, hopefully, cognitively restructure your stress management. And it has a really easy way of kind of remembering this as well. So it's an ABCDE model. We're going to go through this, I think, with an example to try to just help paint this a little bit. So A is the activating event. So this can be a statement or a comment. Let's say you walk into a room and your colleague makes a comment that you don't appreciate. That's the activating event. You probably don't have a lot of control over your activating event, but it's the event. So B comes into place. B is the belief that becomes the self-talk. So you're going to look at the event, or the activating event, which was the comment that was made to you. So what do you believe about that? Maybe you believe they're having a bad day. Maybe you believe this isn't really out of the ordinary for them. Maybe they just make comments like that. It's the self-talk that you're having inside of yourself that helps the belief become what it is. The consequence is to follow. So what's your emotional response to that belief from that activating event? Well, perhaps you get a little bit anxious. Maybe that comment made you mad. Maybe it was silly. Maybe it made you laugh. Who knows? But that'll be the emotional response that you elicit. Dispute. This becomes a really important intervention when you're dealing with an event such as this. So with the evidence that you're looking for is what about this behavior can I dispute? So if this is a colleague that constantly makes rude comments to people, maybe that's what you're disputing. Well, I don't really need to listen to them. They're not really right. This is something that they do all the time. Those kinds of disputes internally can be very helpful. And finally, effect. How does this affect your day? How does this affect the situation? How does this affect your life? So hopefully that will be an interesting cognitive model that you can use to help yourself with that problem solving. So we're going to look at some stress-inducing irrational words. I think this is really important because, I'll speak for myself, I think that I say a lot of these words, and I don't necessarily know that they're causing me stress. I'm sure you can think of other people that do as well. So let's just look at some of these. So how about, I'm always behind. Have you ever heard yourself say that? I have. And what it's doing is it's causing unneeded stress on me. This is an awful situation. I don't know how I'll ever pull out of this. It's another example of the way that some of these words can be put into everyday phrases and can cause the stress for you. All right, so now hopefully we're going to be able to give you some tools to take away. I just want to go ahead and let you know also that in the packet that we sent you, there are just a variety of tools that are really helpful, but we're not necessarily going to be able to get into detail about. So hopefully, I know after these trainings sometimes the packets get lost or thrown away, but really I encourage you to keep these and just to reference them as needed. So on page 10, for instance, there's a really, there's some interesting tools to help you with your habitual beliefs. So techniques, these are just, 6 really kind of sounds easy in theory, but good to reference techniques. Distraction, disputing, as we talked about, looking for the evidence, alternatives, implications, how is this belief going to, what implications are you going to allow this belief to have, and usefulness. So how is this belief useful? So what I want to do before we actually get into breathing and centering is have you look at page 11. Page 11 has another really quick exercise. I'm hoping that we can spend about 3 or 4 minutes doing. This is kind of a nice, helpful chart. What I want you to do is just think of 1 to 4 negative thoughts that you might have. Then I want you to think of an intervention of some sort. So what is the stop going to be when you start having those negative thoughts? And finally, how can you positively counter those? So I'll give you an example of when I did this training in person. We had a person who stood up and said, well, when I start feeling like I am never going to get things done, I always have a hair tie on my wrist, and I snap it. And that intervenes my thought. And then I think, oh, I need to think of my positive counter, which is, I've been here before. I can do this. So some of those are really, simple. They can literally be a physical intervention, like this person mentioned, or it can be something else. But I just want you to think about it. So let's just take about 3 to 4 minutes and look at those negative thoughts. All right, well, I'm going to just chime back in here. I hope that you found that helpful. It's really interesting to think about kind of the positive counter to some of our everyday negative thoughts. Now, before we go to, I'm going to show you a couple videos here in just a few moments. These are going to be some really helpful kind of balancing and centering exercises. What I really like about these is that you can do these pretty much anywhere, especially the first one that we're going to show you, which is breath meditation. So you can be sitting in your office having a stressful day, doing a stressful task, and you can take a few seconds to do this. And really, I think that there's always time to do some of these exercises. And you also have control about how many you do. So you can do 1 or 2 of these breaths, or you can do 20 or 30, just depending on how many you need and what your time constraints look like. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to show you the breath meditation video first. And so you're going to see us just go ahead and literally go online on YouTube to show this to you. And this is our CEO, Dr. Mines. He's put these together, and we use them quite often, so I hope you find them helpful.
Hello, my name is Bob Mines. I'm the CEO and a licensed psychologist with Mines & Associates. Mines & Associates is a national business psychology firm. If you want to find out more information about us, you can go to www.mindsandassociates.com. Mines & Associates is all spelled out. This is a breath meditation training. Breath meditation is a very simple relaxation technique. The essence of it is you're going to breathe in through your nose all the way through to your belly and breathe back out. So when you breathe in, your belly expands. When you breathe out, your belly contracts. The essence of it is to breathe through your nose and exhale through your nose. You're just focusing on your breath, doing deep, slow, and regular breaths. You follow it in, and you follow it out. Then you may notice that your mind starts to wander, starts to focus on other things. That's pretty normal in a meditation, whether it's a breath meditation, a mantra meditation, or any other type of meditation that you may be engaged in. Simple thing is, you just return back to your breath. And breathe back out. Breathing in. Breathing out. And as you go through the breath cycle, allow your body to relax. Allow your energy to settle in your abdominal area. Return your focus back to your breath whenever it drifts away. Slowing down, soothing, and calming yourself. You should do your breath meditation anywhere from at least 1 breath up to 10, 15, 20 minutes if you have that amount of time. The nice thing about a breath meditation is it can give you a temporary relaxation, allow you to just calm yourself, whether it's in the midst of a drive down through rush hour, at work, at home. You can always use your breath to center and relax. Thank you for sharing this video with me. Have a day filled with loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, equanimity, and impeccable sobriety.
All right, well, I hope you found that one to be helpful. And the next one is another one that you can just follow along with, and it's called an autogenic relaxation technique. So we're going to go ahead and show that now as well.
Close your eyes comfortable position and allow yourself to start to relax. I'd like you to make a mental scan of your body and your mind and allow any areas of tension to start to soften, to move, to relax. And in your mind's eye, I'd like you to make a mental connection with your arms and legs. Repeat silently to yourself, my arms and legs are heavy and warm. My arms and legs are heavy and warm. Make a mental connection with your abdomen. Repeat to yourself, my abdomen is warm. My abdomen is warm. Mentally connect with your heart. Repeat to yourself, my heartbeat is calm and regular. My heartbeat is calm and regular. Make a mental connection with your breath. Repeat to yourself, my breath is deep and slow. My breath is deep and slow. Make a mental connection with your forehead. Repeat to yourself, my forehead is smooth and cool. My forehead is smooth and cool. Allowing yourself to relax, to become calm and centered, peaceful and at ease. Enjoy the relaxation for as long as you need. And when you're ready, gently allow yourself to return to the moment and open your eyes, ready to go through your day and about your daily business, relaxed, centered, and calm.
All right. Well, thank you. I hope you feel much more relaxed and centered. I think that's a pretty helpful, both of those are pretty helpful tools to really use daily. What we're going to do now is just go ahead and talk about some best practices. In your handout, you're going to have references to everything we're going to talk about now. The first one is just 25 ways to reduce stress. A lot of these we've already kind of talked about just a little bit, but to highlight. So physical exercise, kind of talked about the importance of regular cardiovascular exercise and weight-bearing exercise. Regular nutritional meals. So this is not only eating the right stuff, but even during a stress-free situation. So I don't know about you, but sometimes when I have a lot to get done, I'll eat lunch at my desk. That's just not always best practice in an already stressful situation. Sometimes it's better just to take a moment and eat away from that stress. Diet supplements. So your body uses up B vitamins and C vitamins as well as calcium when it's stressed. So it's good to take a good multivitamin to help counter that. Excessive use of alcohol and caffeine. So I told you a little bit about my experience with caffeine. And I think that probably there are quite a few other people that probably have a similar one. Another one is alcohol. It's only a depressant, but it doesn't really help you feel better. Posting notes to yourself. This is one that I think is pretty helpful. So when you're under a tight deadline or lots of stressful situations, you might find it helpful to just write reminders of yourself. So sit down and write a sticky note of everything you need to get done that day. So if you have a morning meeting or a morning event, perhaps prep the night before. This can also be helpful when you're just trying to get ready in the morning. You know, putting out your clothes, making sure your lunch is packed, going over your materials, any of those things are going to help your stress level. Getting up 15 minutes early. This buffer has been so helpful for me personally. You never know what's going to happen. Your dog might take too long going to the bathroom, going outside, any of those things. So a nice buffer will help you alleviate your stress in the morning. So anticipate your needs. So if you know that you have an early morning meeting and your car is empty on gas, perhaps think about filling up the night before. Giving yourself a buffer in terms of where you need to go. So this can help with traffic delays. It can help with maybe a stop to Starbucks, any of those things. Walking is really important. So if you can walk upstairs instead of taking the elevator, it's good exercise. It helps you kind of take a little mental break, and it's just really a good decompressant. Scheduling quiet times. So quiet times could be when you get home, perhaps, just taking a moment, debriefing on your day, allowing yourself to just let it go. It could also be perhaps just reading a book before bed. Sense of humor is really important. Trying to see the bright side of things and make humor out of a tough situation. This will help your stress level stay low and perhaps can also help people around you. Relaxing your standards. So honestly, you don't need to be a perfectionist in everything you do. Look at what you really need to accomplish and relax those perfection standards. Finding a serene place of your own. So this could be a rocking chair, this could be on your deck, this could be sitting next to the pool. Wherever that place is, make it a really important part of your day to go and visit that. Changing your perspective. Now this is one that I think is, again, kind of easier said than done. Looking at a different perspective is really important. And it'll help you kind of take a step back and take a deep breather. Take advantage of your body rhythms. So if you know that you accomplish a lot after a workout in the morning, perhaps plan your most difficult tasks during that time. Having fun. Make sure to schedule time to have fun. Go out with your friends. Go out to dinner. Go for a run. Do whatever it is that makes your day fun. Say no. You don't always have to say yes to every task. You don't always have to do everything that's asked of you. Be sure to assert yourself and set those boundaries and say no. Reward yourself after a stressful activity. This, I think, is a little college rule. So after finals, I'm going to have a party. After finals, I'm going to take my vacation. Those kinds of things are examples of how you can do that. Spending time with others. This goes back to our need for social activity as social critters. Keep a journal. Some people find it really helpful to just keep a journal and dialogue what has happened throughout the day. This also helps you look at trends. So maybe my stress level has decreased. And, oh, look, so have my coping mechanisms that I've used. Those have increased. And this has been helpful and this has not. Getting plenty of rest. We talked about how important sleep is and just resting, reading a book. Those non-stimulating activities can be very important. Don't make big life changes. Now this is inevitable. Sometimes we have to do this. A big move is an example of a life change. Switching schools and jobs. It can certainly be difficult, but if you can avoid those types of tasks during a stressful situation, that'll be helpful. Normalizing your schedule. So routine can be really helpful. Makes you feel comfortable. You don't have to think too much about it, and it can help you during a stressful time. And finally, don't give yourself negative labels. You're not losing it. You're not always behind. Really look at some of those labels you give yourself and see if you're really reacting to stress in a normal way. All right. Well, on page 15, we're not going to go ahead and do this, but I just want to give you a couple tools that you can take home and do. So there's a stress reduction exercise, and it's pretty similar to what you saw in the video, but I think that it's helpful to have it sort of in steps so that you can reference it in case you forgot. Page 16 has seated yoga. Once again, really just helpful, nice, and quick things that you can do at your desk. I thought the nose wiggles one was kind of interesting, and I didn't know how it would work until I tried it. So some of these are just really nice to do and see which ones work best for you. And along with the seated yoga, there's also foot rolls and heel lifts, a variety of those. The saying that you see on our screen is one that we use here at our firm often. Where your mind goes, your energy goes. And this is really important if you think of it literally as it's stated. So if your mind is going in a negative direction, so will your energy. On page 19, you're going to see rules for being human. Some of these are just really interesting reminders. They're really helpful. So let's go ahead and just quickly go over the rules. So rule number 1, you will receive a body. So you may like your body, you may not like your body, but it's yours. Rule 2, you will learn lessons. So you are enrolled in a full-time informal school called life. Congratulations. Each day in this school of life, you're going to have the opportunity to learn new lessons. You may like the lessons, or you might think they're irrelevant or stupid, but they're lessons. Rule 3, there are no mistakes, only lessons. So remember, growth is a process of trial and error, experimentation. The failed experiments are as much part of the process as the experiment that ultimately works. Rule 4, a lesson is repeated until learned. A lesson will be presented to you in various forms until you have learned it. And when you have learned it, you can move on to the next lesson. Rule 5, remember, learning lessons never ends. There's no part of this school of life that doesn't contain a lesson. If you're alive and you're going through the days, you will be learning lessons. Rule 6, there is not better than here. When your there has become here, you will simply obtain another there. That will again look better than where you are when you're here. Rule 7, others are merely mirrors of you. You can't love or hate something about another person unless it reflects something to you, something you love or hate about yourself. What you make of your life is up to you. This is Rule 8. You have all the tools and resources you need. What you do with them is up to you, but the choice is yours. Rule 9. Your answers lie inside you. The answers to life's questions lie inside you. All you need to do is look, listen, and trust. And finally, Rule 10, and this is the most important, I think, and that is that you will forget this. So keep this around to reference. All right. Well, we just have one more exercise that I want to spend about 4 or 5 minutes doing, and that is we're actually going to build an action plan today to deal with your stress management. So hopefully you're able to take away some important tools and have some important references in case you're encountering a stressful situation and it's a little bit overwhelming, which is normal. So on page 20, you'll see this nice outline of an action plan. I'll give you about 5 minutes to go ahead and do this. Just ask yourself the questions and think of different ways to address them. All right, everyone. Well, I hope that your action plan was helpful. What I want to do now is, first of all, thank you very much for tuning in today. We really appreciate being able to share some of our strategies for stress management. Also, I just want to take the last few minutes, this is what we typically do, and just offer some time for questions, or also if you'd like to share anything that you found to be helpful today in terms of strategies or just ways to cope with stress, we'd really like to hear those too. So feel free to go ahead and type in any questions or comments, and I'd be happy to share them. And we'll stay on for about 10 minutes or so. And once again, thank you so much for being here today. Have a wonderful day.